Hello.
Hello. So you didn't make it to Berlin, Thomas?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't not available.
Yeah, bummer. Apparently
Yeah,
your booth was set up though, so that was
yeah. I don't know why. I told them that I was not coming, and they set it up the booth. So I'm a bit sad about it.
yeah, oh well. I guess still brand recognition or something there then.
Something like that. Yeah.
Just pull up the notes. We'll wait a sec and get going.
Right.
Hey Lucas. All right, I'll share the notes real quick. It's actually been a while since I've been to one of these. I've been traveling so much, so it's yeah, good to be back. Um, let's see. Yeah, if people could add their names to the list real quick, and looks like there's a few new attendees. I guess we'll wait 1 minute, and then if people are willing to pop in and say hi, please feel free to do so. And then we can go ahead and get started. And if you have agenda items, please feel free to add them.
Please put NFC device close to sensing area. Please put NFC device close to sensing area.
Now I'm curious.
Me too.
Uh, all right. Yeah, okay. I don't know if that really
Testing,
explains it, but
testing new HomeKit devices. So
nice.
I really like smart home devices. So I was just playing around while we were waiting, and I forgot to mute the mic.
No problem. It adds the comic relief to the meeting, I guess. All right. I guess it's probably I don't know where Todd is. He'll probably join in a moment. But we can probably get going if it's any like apologies. I've missed a couple meetings, so if it's not your first time, you don't have to introduce yourself. But if you are new, if first time at the meeting, if you don't mind quickly saying hi, appreciate it, and then we can get going.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Florian. I am coming here. I am working at Google for 2 years and a half, and as we're looking to kind of contribute to the open source community with this open feature. I don't have much experience with things done in open source, but I'm hoping that it's for my first time attending a meeting like this. So I'm very excited. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for joining, and yeah, good to have you here. Anyone else? I see David's unmuted, but I can't hear him. Okay. Well, welcome anyways, David. If you get your mic working, feel free to pop in and say hi. But good to have you here. All right. I guess Florian, you're up first. You have the first topic, so I'll open the floor up to you.
Yeah. Thanks. I've sent out this proposal, and I think a few of you have had some time to look at it and left a few comments on the proposal. So just thank you very much for taking some time to read through it. Basically, to just give a quick background, we're looking to create maybe some tool for strong typed flag accessors. We would be interested to do a code generation to kind of wrap around the accessing of flags in OpenFeature, so that you'd have something strongly typed. I see many numerous benefits for this, and that would be like the end goal to kind of say. And for start, we were just wanting to kind of like come ahead and maybe like propose like a unified input format that hopefully everybody could convert to, that is like hopefully not too like restrictive, and just try to have like some very simple input, the minimal information that should be present, I suppose, in all flag evaluation implementations. And yeah, so that would be the proposal. And I don't know exactly like what is the process like. I suppose like I think the one like the biggest thing that I suppose is to be discussed with this proposal of mine is how to handle kind of like object type object types, keeping in mind like with me on my side, I see like at least keeping in mind this would be like for generating flag accessors. What I have in mind is like one, like if you allow like a default value, like how it should be it should be passed if we are generating some strongly typed flag accessors. And then in the future, if we are to maybe like introduce like, for example, allowed values or things like that, like how we would handle maybe this sort of thing in the sense of like allowing some sort of values. Do we bring some comparator to it? I think these are like some open questions on my side as well. So yeah, I'm just hoping to come here to speed up the process, and we can kind of like just brainstorm a little bit.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add? I definitely have some thoughts on this. I personally think it's a really good idea and kind of an obvious like kind of next step, and basically then any tool that uses OpenFeature can kind of benefit from this code gen, which seems to be sort of where the industry is slowly going, I would say. I've seen a couple tools do it, but it's not like industry wide yet. And I think it makes a ton of sense for me personally. From a project perspective, I think what we could do is we could put it on the project, basically roadmap, and probably maybe create a dedicated GitHub discussion then, and start, gathering requirements. If we want to do, kind of rapid prototypes and stuff, we can put all that there. And then, if we find, someone that can kind of dedicate time to it, we could definitely, turn that into like a more official like sub project. It really just depends on if we can find people to kind of own and drive the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on our side, like we are, as far as like implementing and driving the topic, like I'd be, more than happy to at least lead the effort as far as like implementing, and kind of just like getting everybody involved. Again, I'm not very familiar with the process, but if there's some procedure to follow, I'd like happily do it. So yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, let's like right after this meeting, then I can create like a dedicated discussion item for that. We could even create like a sub Slack channel if we want to have something, a spot to talk specifically about this topic. And it'd be more in like the discovery and prototype-y phase than I think at this stage. And then if we get to a point where, it makes sense to like officially like merge it into the project, we can go through that whole process. I see Thomas raise his hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we already have a discussion. I think Florian already opened one where we are discussing about it.
Okay.
And I think where we are right now is that how we handle objects, which is probably the most critical one, because I mean generating code for standard types are pretty easy, but for objects it's where it's become a bit more tricky.
Yeah, and
So
I guess
I don't know
maybe
if you already, or if someone has already think about it, but yeah.
yeah, and figuring out maybe it's similar to like what we did with OFREP and a few others, where we just kind of define like the goals and non-goals, and if we can be pretty explicit about that, it helps kind of set like our expectations, I guess, for what the project should cover. But yeah, let's follow up on that one. I think it's a good idea. I've actually kind of worked on a prototype, around the holidays last year, and it's just kind of sat in this like embarrassingly bad prototypey stage for a while. I'd be happy to try to resurrect that, but we do have like a number of other topics going on, so we just have to kind of figure out like, how we can balance everything effectively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I also have some sort of like prototype that I quickly coded. Maybe I'd be ready to, just share something either for my private repository, maybe somewhere like maybe next week. I'm not entirely sure. I've been coding like in Golang, a little bit of a prototype, and it can generate these flag accessors in Go. So I have something that's working. I just think it needs to be, a little bit like polished, just so that it's in like a presentable state. So I like happily share that. So what would be like how does this basically like work? Like what would be like the next the next steps to take the discussion? Do I create like list of requirements? Do we iterate on the proposal? Like how does it work exactly? I know this maybe is like a stupid question, but
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not, not a stupid question. I guess this is one of those things where, you know, the prototype goes a long ways. I think I'll put it that way. And maybe what we could do is also spin off like, or see if people are interested in doing some kind of like dedicated meeting on this one. I'm also happy to show what I've put together at some point and see where like the overlaps are. And then the demo that you talked about would go a long ways as well. So I think maybe we kind of work on like, you can keep working on your private repo. We can use that GitHub discussion in Slack, and then probably try to make a decision pretty quickly on kind of the next steps. There's not really a super formal process, kind of by design. We didn't want to make it super like rigid to like add new stuff to the project. But you know,
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. So then I'll be like creating like a discussion on the Slack, and just to get everybody's like inputs. What I'm at with it, again, as Thomas mentioned, I think this thing about like the object type is probably the biggest thing to discuss. But I'd say still we can try and proceed, to have something like as a base to generate for just like primitive types, and then possibly we could just like iterate and add support for object type later on and whatnot. So I'd still give it a go with what we have right now. And yeah.
sounds good. Pete?
So I think it's great. I think it's a great idea. I think two thoughts. One is it would be whatever solution we go for, it would be really good. I think it would be super, super, super valuable if we are able to use a format that means that we can lean on existing kind of standards or existing open source libraries, particularly for like stuff like that object spec. Whatever we come up with, if we want it to be used for code gen, needs to consistently code gen in like every language that kind of that we want to be in the ecosystem. So something like, I didn't like JSON schema maybe isn't the right thing, but something like that where you can kind of guess that like implementing it consistently would mean finding a library that's already out there in a bunch of different languages, rather than having to like implement some custom kind of like object specification thing. I think that would be really valuable. That's just one thought. And then the second thought is it would be good to survey what the kind of existing kind of definitions are for some of the existing vendors, and just to A, to get inspiration, and B, to kind of like avoid doing something that's accidentally slightly incompatible with the way that some vendors think about things. So that's just two thoughts. But I think the number one thing that we always get bitten by is it's super easy to build like a prototype in one language or two languages, but then getting it to spread out to all of the other languages is the thing that's a pain. So if we can avoid having to do it all ourselves and use some prior art, then that would save us all some pain and suffering, I think.
All right. Todd?
You're muted, Todd.
It's like unmuted, but not
You're
working still.
unmuted, but muted somehow.
Hardware mute. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, the good old hardware mute. Yeah, I was just gonna say I think this is a great idea. Fully support it. I think that practically after we've had whatever discussions and done whatever prototyping, I think this could probably be another thing that's maybe a spec appendix, I'm thinking. So I think that might be the formal result we have if we want one. And it could be pretty simple. Like I don't think it needs to be huge. Like the other appendices we have on the spec are more plain English than our proper specification and just some utilities and stuff like that. So it could be something like that.
Thomas?
Yeah. Also, one thing I think it's worth mentioning is that if we do something like that, maybe it should be easy to use for anyone. Like it should not be you have to use this tool to have this with you. Like I don't know, like this CI tool to generate a code or something like that. I think like a CLI or something like that would be maybe more easy to use for everyone rather than having something that um, lock you with a specific technology. Because depending on the vendors, maybe they will have like things they're gonna do around that. So, but I don't know because I know that you were thinking maybe using some Bazel stuff, Florin, and I don't know if Bazel is a good way to go or if we will need to be like super simple as CLI, I guess.
So yeah, just
Looks like you're having some audio issues. But I guess while you figure that out, I do agree with Thomas. If we could figure out like this has actually been another.
that particular thing. So
Sorry, go ahead. You're breaking up quite bad, but I think it's working again. Maybe, maybe not.
Sounds like lag, not an audio issue.
Something.
So we were thinking about having some templates to easy of use, but also publish that as a Docker image, so everybody can use that easily as a CLI. But I think the code and everything should be pretty simple. We are thinking about targeting Golang because it is probably one of the easiest and best language for building CLIs. But of course, it will be open source, so we can discuss maybe about other constraints.
oh yeah, thanks Dominic for covering me up. Like I had some quick network issues. I'm hoping they're a bit mitigated now. Yeah, just to keep it like very simple. Like a first thing would have like a CLI, and for our scope and purposes, we'd love to have some maybe like to offer the ability of a Bazel rule, but definitely I think like having like a CLI, just that everybody could run, perhaps like as an executable, as a Docker image, perhaps something that should be available for everybody is in our mind as well.
Yeah, and definitely interested in that. Like a CLI, if done, right, I guess, could be like unlock a lot of new capabilities. I think if we could keep extending it to add, is the flag used in your code base and code gen and some other potentially some basic migration strategies and stuff could be captured in this. So that'd be something I'd like to at least investigate, but it sounds like yeah, you have some I'd like to see the prototype. So I think maybe for now then the action items are we can continue to discuss through that GitHub issue. And then maybe I send out a like a Calendarly invite or something and see if people are interested in trying to get together on a dedicated call. I can clean up my little prototype as well, and maybe we can kind of show each other like current state, see what we like and what we want to change, and then it gives us like maybe another week to kind of get it ready for the next community call. Does that sound okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And on my side, I will be like setting up a Slack, and as soon as we have something to at least share and get some early feedback, we will come back on that and also have chat for other discussions.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Perfect. Anything else on that topic before we move on? All right, cool. It looks like Lucas has a couple topics on. Over to you.
Okay, so I've just two really small things. So one thing was, I was wondering, for one thing that's still like I think really missing in the off-ramp provider is configuration without explicit parameters, something like environment variables. And when I was thinking about that, like using OpenTelemetry for stuff, and so I was wondering if there's the option to have some standard variables that maybe providers could use to have something like a something like a port or so, or if that doesn't make sense. I'm really not sure if that makes more trouble than it solves. So like the least would be we have to add it to off-ramp, I think, because it's like super valuable, and I think we should always think if that's possible for other providers because it makes like switching scenarios and so way more easy. And the other thing was really like, is there some common ground for variables that could be defined and that could be like spec'd? I'm not sure about that actually.
Okay.
I was just thinking about it and maybe someone has an opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, we did something similar in flag D for like environment variable config. So I think it probably makes sense. But I think yeah, maybe we could start a conversation in the
No.
OFREP channel and just kind of go from there. But it should be a relatively simple implementation if we decide to go that route.
I mean, exactly. That's for sure, and I think that's like the kind of given part that this is helpful for the provider, just having everything exposed as environment and having these like transparent configurations. And yeah, when I've been using some OTel stuff, and so especially for these cloud native and deployment scenarios, that's like super valuable if you have just standard stuff in there. But yeah, I mean, in the end, we never know what will be the underlying technology and so I'm really not sure if we can make it work, but it was just something I thought maybe it makes sense to think a second if there's some common ground in that also.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting nods and thumbs up. So I think it's probably a good idea. I would just want to like prefix it probably to make sure we don't have collisions or something. But other than that, I think it's yeah, it makes sense. Probably just kind of spec it out what they are and where they map, and yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Yeah, then I will just open it and maybe I will start in the off-ramp and then we can see also something like this. Okay. And the other part was we've been in the JS channel, we've been discussing if it makes sense to have, or if we can use the React SDK for React Native applications. And I just thought it makes sense to have a quick look at it. I'm not sure if I'm actually able to. I think that's weird to only show that, right?
Yeah, it works.
I don't know.
Yeah, nice.
But in the end, this is basically the application that that Todd wrote for the React demo. But just I took like 2 of his demos and added 2 other ones to show what is possible. And we can see that the first demo, this flag change works. So this demo is like showing that it's re-rendered when it's getting new flags. So this part of it is working. And we had like the spans working. I mean, it was pretty foreseeable that this might work because it's still like React without React DOM and so, but it's like working and it works for that. And then we had the question, okay, how about all these platform dependencies and so? And I found like a positive example of working because off-ramp protocol only uses fetch, no other platform dependencies, nothing like that, besides from fetch, which is like available there. And then we found that, or I found that flag D currently with the connect protocol doesn't work for us. And we can see it says like could not establish connection. And in the background, it says async iterators are not defined. And if you are solving this, the next thing missing is buffers, I guess, something like that, which they also don't have. And there are like 1 or 2 things more. And in the connect docs, I could find an example of them using the connect SDK for React Native. So I guess it's working. I didn't have time to like fix all these issues. So this was like the more negative example, but like everything that only uses fetch and no platform dependencies, that's working nice. And now the question would be how we continue on that. If we are like for example, making it possible to show that your web provider is, for example, working with, or that you can annotate it as like working with React Native, if we might be able to test something like it, if we try to, I don't know, there are like multiple things we could do. We could like just silently accept that it works and hint to that. We could do nothing about it. We could, that's like the question, what we do now. Exactly.
I mean, it's really cool to see. I was a little bit surprised, to be honest. I read a blog post. I was a little bit surprised at how much worked, especially like the OFREP provider and KubeFeature flag. That's very cool. It's also feels like justification for some of the choices we made, including keeping the React SDK minimal, keeping our runtime surface area very minimal. Obviously, that's kind of the reason why a lot of this stuff works. Yeah, so I mean, I'm really happy with it. To be honest, I don't think like making changes to FlagD web is like hugely exciting to me. Maybe, but like FlagD supports OFREP. We know OFREP works, so I'd be fine with that. OFREP will obviously work for any vendor that supports it now, if you want to. So I mean, I think this is validating in a lot of ways. Yeah, maybe a blog post would be good. A simple blog post if you have time, Lucas. That would be very cool. That would go a long way.
I think so.
those are my
I think that
thoughts.
would be fine.
Yeah, and your demo app is in the org, is that
Yeah.
correct? Is it public or is it just like internal or something?
It's
forget.
currently org private because I just
Okay.
wanted to show it, but we could at any time make it public or polish it and make it public. That would be super fine.
Yeah, so maybe that
I
could be
just-
something that goes with the blog post. We don't like make
Yeah.
sure that it's got disclaimers and whatever. This is just like an
Yeah.
example. And then we could also add a quick entry in the SDK page that is
Yeah.
pretty similar to the React one, but that would be like configuration change. It should be pretty straightforward to add. And just to let people know it exists. To answer your question about provider support, I guess it would be up to the provider's README to maybe have a section on like, it's been verified there, and it's a little bit hard to enforce that, but I think it's probably the best we can do with a low lift, I guess.
And
Thomas?
like for sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe we can also highlight it in the ecosystem page. I think that's what Lucas was mentioning, is like, if we just say this is a web provider working with React Native, it could be something we highlight too.
I guess this also means that the web provider works with React, which
React Native, you mean?
React Native, sorry. I don't know how many people would use it. I guess if you're using React Native, you might as well go right to the React SDK. But I suppose that's also true.
Yeah, because I think the hard part now is that you have one provider that is called web provider working in different SDK, meaning that it works with React, it works with web SDK, and it may work with React Native. And it's hard to navigate here, and if you are not like super familiar as we are with the project to understand how things are linked together. So I don't know how to highlight that, but I'm sure people will get lost with that.
Okay, so I guess like to sum up, it makes sense maybe to write some like a really short blog where we just say, okay, it generally works. You have to be sure that your provider works with it. Some providers are mentioning it. I'm still wondering if it makes sense to have something like a badge or like something like this, that we kind of say, okay, if you have a web provider, we can just make it easy to see. I don't know. And then add maybe like one section to the React SDK to say, okay, this works in React Native, and you have to be sure which provider to use, and we know that OFREP is like working. Something like this.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it sounds good. I would probably start with the blog because the ecosystem stuff may be more time consuming, but it would be, if we can come up with a pattern that might be useful for other technologies down the road too.
Yeah.
Well, sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, cool. Thanks for the demo and thanks for testing that out. It's quite cool to see. All right. It looks like here, I'll share the links one more time if anyone wants to add anything. It looks like I'm up next, but I have a very, very quick update. There's a not like the last KubeCon demo or deadline that I'm aware of is I think July 22nd, and that's more project specific. That's like, do we want to do a maintainers track? Do we want to do apply for the hackathon? Do we want to do, you know, the quick lightning talks, things like that? And so I'm assuming we'll do some of those. If there's anything that you're particularly passionate about or want to help out, you know, let me know and we can put in that request. I haven't been confirmed that I'm going, but I think it's pretty likely. You know, and so I'll probably apply for a couple of those things. But if it's something that you had your heart set on doing and you'll be there, more than happy to get the help. So just throwing that out there that it's an option. And I think that's basically it. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Someone's adding a link. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the link to the link to the Slack channel for OpenFeature #KubeCon or OpenFeature -KubeCon. So if you want to discuss what you might be doing for a KubeCon or coming for a KubeCon, you can put it in there. And that's Salt Lake City, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have anything? All right. Perfect. All right. Well, we can wrap it up here then. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day. We'll talk to you later.
You too. See you.
Thanks. See ya.